Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. As usual, I'd like to stop right here and thank our guests for coming for bringing a couple of things that I deem very expensive. Time. One of the
Mm,
most precious commodities given to mankind, each and every one of us, 24 hours. Now, what we do with that 24 hours will speak volumes of who you are. The other is
mm,
the journey. The journey housed who they were and made them who they are today. And so that
mm.
is a precious commodity that's housed power, joy, pain, all of it. But through it, it created this beautiful person that stands before us. Spencer, thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Thank you, Ken, for inviting me, and thank you for what you do. As I was sharing, I was listening to some different episodes of the podcast, and I think it's rare that people get an opportunity to really have such an exchange and really be free and share fully, who they are. And I
Yes.
really honor you in giving that space to people and also sharing the wisdom that you've gained over the years. So really looking forward to our time together.
Definitely. My hope is that as those that are in pain, Spencer, that are listening and feel there is no hope, that there
Mm,
is hope. And
mm,
from the conversation, the that exchange of energies and wisdom will be able to lift them. And our goal here at Threads is always to send the audience to you because I feel that you are here to help escort them to that next level of their human development while they're here. So we send them here. And through our conversation, our hope is that they would follow you and become disciples. I said, stop being members and become disciples. Disciples change the world. So introduce us to you, Spencer. Tell us some of those things that you have created in your life at this moment. And I know that you have a beautiful list, a powerful list, but share what's on your heart to the
mm.
audience.
Thank you so much, Ken. And yeah, I would say that I really resonate with what you're saying, that, for me, that my whole journey, I think, in this lifetime started with that question of, what is this life all about?
Yeah.
Why am I here? Is it just to get up and have my my avocado toast and do my exercise and then go to work and work until late and see my family very briefly and then go to bed and kind of do it all over again, or is there
Yeah.
something more than that? And I would say that that question actually hasn't really been answered, but I ask it in a different way, and it's brought me to some really amazing places.
Yeah.
This
That is
question,
awesome.
what is this? Yeah, what is this life? And who am I? And yeah, I would say now I work with a really beautiful foundation um, called the Art of Living, and I teach a number of different programs with the Art of Living. Art of Living was founded by a great master of meditation, could say global humanitarian, ambassador of peace, Gurudev Sri Sri Ravi Shankar.
Hmm.
And he actually started this foundation, I guess, about 42 years ago in 1981, if you can believe it.
Yeah.
And in those 42 years, he's been able to touch, I guess, about 180 countries and over 500 million people around the world, including me. And
Wow.
I've become one of his teachers, teaching this different wisdom, Sudarshan Kriya or sky breath meditation. We can go into that a little bit later. We go into silence, deep silence, silent meditations, yoga, pranayama, Ayurveda, Vedic astrology. I mean, the list goes on with the depth, but I think the essence of which is really getting back, to what you were saying, getting back to ourself, that
Yeah.
love, that joy, that peace that we are. And we do so in the corporate realm, in the institutional realm, with physicians, with police, with first responders, with the veterans as well that come back from the war and the military. We work with teachers, we work in prisons. So just about everybody I think that may be listening, we've worked with you, and people that are doing great in their life, and also people that are really having a hard time, like we were talking about, people that are in pain.
Yeah.
These programs and techniques and this wisdom has really helped transform the life of so many. So looking forward to sharing a little more, and also hearing about your journey, Ken. I know you've had such an incredible journey in this lifetime as well.
Yeah, it's been, and I share from time to time that, and I mentioned to you earlier, that through pain or trauma, we are
Mm,
all given birth.
mm,
I mentioned that I was there when my sons were being born, and so I saw what trauma is, and from the physical realm. And trauma can be to a child, and usually it starts at a young age, and it could be the from just absolute many different things. You have the brutal type of trauma that people suffer because of total ignorance and behavior from others and hateful processes by which they think and live. And then it could be something simple as a child uh, trying to get mom and dad's attention, and mom and dad actually truly are busy for some reason, and they may say to that child, "Not now. We're busy or whatever," and that child interprets that as a form of rejection, and based on that interpretation of a situation, that child will then take that emotional stamp that we have. And I teach and I tell people that we call it the subconscious, and the subconscious has your mind, your thoughts, your will, your decision part of you, and then there's that emotional part of your subconscious. And I said that subconscious puts a stamp on what thought you had, how you took it, and then that emotional stamp drops it into your inner being, and you own it now. And so when that situation comes up again, that program that you have deposited in you will manifest, and you will react condition response. And so now you have to learn how to undo that as you get older. So here you are, Spencer, you are um, I call it the first space by which we get to reside when we are kissed and brought home to the house from the hospital, and that we reside
mm,
there for a little while. And I call it also, some people call it home, I call it lab, because we have these scientists called mom and dad and grandma and all these things. And they are now going to input some of their theories and thesis into you.
mm,
Invite us into your family, and what was that like?
mm. Yeah, I feel very fortunate, to have really great. I feel that I had great parents. My parents were both from Montreal, and so I was born in Montreal. You could say I got kind of for me, I feel, I got the best of both worlds in the sense in Montreal, because I had one, kind of French Canadian side, and I also have the English Canadian side, which is part of our cultural kind of tapestry, you could say, in
Yeah.
Canada and in Montreal. Um, and and I would say, I feel really, yeah, grateful that they raised me in a way that I could live the way I wanted to live. I also got my share of discipline, as many of us as well. Uh, and and yeah, my father actually passed away quite young. I was about 10 years old, and then it was just kind of my mother and myself and my sister.
Mhm.
So that obviously was a change for me growing up. I think I took on much more responsibility in the home, and that is for sure. And I think sometimes maybe many of us can also identify with this, that you know as we go through life, we get so caught up in taking care of our responsibilities that we really don't really ask some of these bigger questions.
Yeah.
And And I think it's only when, I got to a point where, somehow we're born, we're living our life, where God blesses us with, few skills, things are going well.
Yeah.
And it's really only when things start to go badly that we actually maybe stop and really, kind of take stock of where we're at and ask these bigger questions, so like, what is this life about?
Yeah.
And who am I? Is this, just like we were discussing before, is it just to get up to, do some of my practices, to, eat my, avocado toast or my cereal or whatever you have in the morning, go to work until late, come back, spend a little bit of time with my family or friends, and then just go to sleep and rinse and repeat and do the same thing over and over. I felt like I was in this, like, perpetual groundhog day,
Yeah.
and and one day was a carbon copy of the last, and what kind of real meaning was I able to offer the world, and was I able to, take myself. And I think that space of emptiness, that space of sadness, that space of maybe anxiety and fear about, well, what is this about? It's interesting because I really identify with what you said. That space, it makes you ask these bigger questions, and it really changes your trajectory from, maybe just continuing the same old, and stretching out of your comfort zone, and really, exploring something new, and adding a new dimension to your life. Yeah, I think that's one of the big factors there, that period where really a lot of my life didn't make sense to me, in a sense that, yeah, I was doing all the things I did before, but nothing was really kind of working.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, those moments really bring a lot of reflection, and like you said, you either kind of stay in that state and just push forward, but it comes to a point where you really have to take responsibility and make a change. And yeah, that was the a big point of transition for me.
Yeah. I think everyone has an opportunity to go there to disconnect because the programming tells us that we ought to get up, go to school, move through high school, run into college, get a good grade, come out to college, know where you're going, find your wife, get
Mm,
2.4 kids, get your dog, get your house with a white picket fence, get your car, get your yacht, get your vacation every 2 weeks, come back, plug in, and don't move. And I've known people. I worked at a skilled nursing facility where I had a chance to engage with people that were in the 80s and 90s that lived that way. And I believe all of us have the opportunity because of how great we are. But most of us don't. I think some of us will ask the deeper questions, if you will. But some of them and some people will continue to numb it even more, the thoughts, because they have to
mm,
put it down because they're afraid of being alone, being they're afraid of what they those lie beyond those questions. And so because of that,
mm,
because every single one of us, I tell people, every one of us is an endangered species. So I
mm,
know if that feeling came to me, Spencer, and it came to you, it also came to them. And how they
mm,
respond to it will dictate where we go in life. And so here you are,
mm,
this young man that was placed into a position of responsibility at such a young age. And he is now, his world is upside down. He's moving. He is now being programmed, if you will, to take on more responsibility, to be that one that will make things happen.
mm,
How did this young man function within that space? Because to take your extracted dad out of a situation like that at a young age must have had some impact on that
mm,
young boy who is
mm.
now the man of the house.
And that's exactly it. I mean, that's exactly it. My dad was a really amazing man, full of love, and I know, and also responsibility, you know, that kind of balance. And I know he asked me, you know, as a 10-year-old boy, he wrote me a letter and said, and, you know, shared with me that, you know, you're the man of the house now. And in those same words, and I really took that to heart, you know.
Yeah.
So it was a real shift, you know, with his passing. That was one big shift. And I think it came to a head, you know, after university. I came back, kind of got into this funk. I started, you know, I would ask these bigger questions, you know, sitting with friends, and, you know, they would just kind of look at me like I was from, you know, Mars or something like that, and just say, hey, you know, why you have to ask all these questions? You know, have another drink, and just enjoy your life. There's no need to ask those questions. So the interesting thing is that I ended up actually, you know, trying many different things, tried many different approaches, and, you know, saw doctors. And even I remember this help works for many people, the psychologist, which is great for a lot of people. But I
Yeah.
know for me, you know, I was seeing the psychologist, and we were paying like quite a bit, almost $300 per hour. And I remember in the session, psychologist actually broke down and started to
Wow.
cry and cry, and was sharing, oh, you know, I feel like such a fraud. I am also riddled by fear and anxiety. I'm also depressed. I can't take this anymore. I'm listening to people's problems all day. I don't know what to do. And, you know, my
Wow.
heart really went out to them in that moment. That's for sure. Uh, and then at the same time, I was thinking, well, maybe can we go half here? Like, you know, I pay 150, you know, you tell me half the time, I tell you. I thought, okay, and and I think that's it. I mean, I was like, really came to the conclusion, like, wow, you know, all these people, you know, kind of with the big jobs and getting paid the big salaries, you know, I think maybe they don't know everything, actually.
Yeah.
And maybe there's more to this journey than just those answers. And that that really led me on a journey of reading, of learning, of really traveling and looking into the mystics. And I ended up moving. I was in Toronto at the time. Ended up moving to Montreal, and I saw this poster. I'd gone back to school, didn't really know what else to do, so I thought, at least let me do some kind of change. And I saw this
Yeah.
poster for free meditation. It was an intro session for the art of living.
Hmm.
And I said, okay, well, I'm a student. It's the right price. Let me give this a shot. And in that session, I really discovered some deep peace, from meditating with the voice of Gurudev Sri Sri Ravi Shankar. I ended up
Yeah.
taking his course, which is called the Part 1 course, where you learn sky breath meditation, Sudarshan Kriya. And from the very moment I learned this technique, this anxiety, this fear that I was not able to get any relief from, I finally had some solace. I
Yeah.
finally was able to experience that deep peace that I was, and it was a break, because I was starting to identify with these emotions, right? This anger, this
Yeah.
anxiety. Oh, I am that. I am an angry
Yeah.
person. I am a, you
Hmm.
know, anxious person. I'm just like that. And actually, through that experience and practicing this technique, I got kind of a glimpse into this, you know, this essence I feel of myself, which is that joy, which is that peace, which is that love.
Yeah.
And the fact that, you know, of course, these emotions is valuable information. They're valuable teachers,
Yeah.
that's for sure. But we don't have to kind of get stuck in them, and we can live from that center. And that was the start of what has now become like a 20-year journey, with the art of living and with Gurudev. And it's such a joy, and I feel very fortunate to be able to share, that with people, now as well.
Yeah. I love. I Before we start the podcast, I always tell people that, and I was talking to you, Spencer, and I told
Mm,
you that we know us, the human being, the our subconscious mind meditates day and night. I mean, it
mm,
is a meditator.
Mm.
Um, and because we are not connected to that meditative part of us, we miss much. And because we're
Mm.
hooked up into the this that program that they gave to us. And when one begins to meditate, we now are beginning to get in contact with the subconscious mind, the creator. And so,
Mm.
and I tell people what happens is when you begin to shift from that and you're walking into meditation, and we will talk about the breath as it is one of the
Mm.
hallmarks of your revelation. That breathing is the breath by which we are able to cross from the natural into the supernatural,
Mm.
from the conscious mind to the unconscious mind to the subconscious mind, that person in there. Because what has happened when we begin to meditate, Spencer, we are taking control of the thoughts. We are
Mm.
now able to slow down everything as we began to, you see it. I mean, when I brought meditation in my life, it's one of the most powerful, I think it is probably the most powerful tool that we can bring into our life. And then you have other things, the breathing, you have yoga, you have journaling, you have all these other tools, but there's nothing like meditation because
Mm.
it allows you to see you, but it also allows you to begin to choose, to decide.
Mm.
You begin to decide what thoughts you are going to choose to meditate on. So as you begin to walk into this space, and you mentioned a little that you began to connect, you begin to see that you are apart from your emotion. It's not you, it is
Mm.
something that you can manage. You can
Mm.
learn how to, to become the master of, if you will. So as you begin to walk in this space of getting connected to you, to your
Mm.
subconscious mind, Spencer, what did you begin to notice in relationships? You mentioned some of your emotion, you saw it, but how did you begin to relate to it as you're
Mm.
looking at it and learning? How did you relate to your anger, to those things that
Mm.
you were programmed before
Mm.
that were, if a situation comes, you would express yourself, if you will.
Mm.
How did you begin to become aware of it, and how did you begin to manage it, if you will?
Mm. Um, there's a beautiful quote from psychologist. His name's Viktor Frankl. I don't know if you ever heard of
Yeah.
him. He wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning, and it's an amazing story. And one of the main kind of, you could say, culminations in his story was this moment where he was torn between, keeping his last cigarette, which was a token of negotiation in the concentration camps that he was staying in,
Mhm.
and having a morsel of food, trading it for a morsel of food. And he was torn and in such anxiety and such, um, confusion in this moment. And he kind of had this moment of epiphany, of feeling, in one sense, totally out of control, and then coming to this tipping point of realizing that, wow, it is actually my decision how I choose to respond in this situation, no
Mhm.
matter what
Yeah.
the variables are.
Yeah.
And he said that in that space between the stimulus, or this situation, or emotion, or what have you, I have a choice not only to just react out of this emotion that you were speaking of, but really I can choose to create that space and respond in the way that I would like to. And that quote, it really resonates with me, because, to answer your question, I feel that rather than just being, some kind of marionette of my
Yeah.
emotions, of the
Yeah.
situation, you know, I started to be able to cut those strings
Yes.
and and to be able to be an observer of
Yeah.
myself, be an observer of the environment, which actually is just one. Uh, and from that space of being able to observe myself and be able to observe my environment, there creates this kind of silent space where intuitively, the action arises. And I would say one thing that I've noticed over time, and as I practice these, as you were saying, with the breath and practicing meditation, is that I almost get into this place of flow more,
Yeah.
where where I, of course, I'm using my intellect, I'm, making decisions, that's for sure. But more and more, I'm acting from this space, this kind of intuitive space of maybe action and non-action,
Yeah.
where, almost like, you hear the professional athletes that say, oh, they ask them, how did you make that pass? Or, how did you perform at such a high level? And they say, well, I don't know, it just happened. And
Hmm.
and that space of happening, that space of just flow and kind of being a vehicle, for the divine or for the spirit or
Yeah.
what have you, kind of getting out of our own way. More and more in my life, I notice myself living from that space, and and I think that process of being able to observe, that process of inner reflection, that process of practicing these techniques, yoga, of which a branch is breathing, meditation, Ayurveda diet. These things have enabled me more and more to live from that place, that intuitive kind of self, and it's opened up another world of opportunity and connection. And look, I find myself here with you today, kindred spirit, and able to kind of express that and share that with people here today.
Yeah, I hope you guys were listening, and I tell people, um, you have the listeners, but most of all, I hope you heard what he said. One must become that observer when it's the most powerful place to be, when you can be in that space. Um,
Mm,
the athletes will call it the zone,
mm,
where you are there and not there, but you're there and everywhere. It's the strangest
mm,
space to be. But in that space right there is so much power, so much understanding, so much uh, to investigate, and there's this desire to want to know more. There's a
mm,
desire to dig deeper when you're in that space, because you, I tell people, because we're energy, that what you
mm,
experience today will never come back, because energy, it does not move that way. It is
mm,
always perpetually moving. And so every moment, that's why one must live in the moment, because that moment is that moment. We even named it Live in the Moment. And so,
mm,
because we are energy, we must learn to do that, because that is where the power is. Because if you live that way, you will experience life at a deeper level. So here you are, you have landed, Spencer. You are now in your path to learning, your experience, all of these things. How did you now begin to, you're seeing you're now making choices as your
mm,
that different types of emotions. How did you now begin to react to those that were in your space
mm,
from this knowledge and this new growth that is happening to you? What did you see yourself with your words now, your reaction to those that maybe a couple of days before they would see the other side of you? What was
mm,
happening as you began to experience that, and your reaction to others?
That's a great question, Ken. And I think that it's different for different people. But I know for me, I almost felt like, this caterpillar, going into the chrysalis, and I needed some time, actually,
Yeah.
really to be with myself, to be in this new environment, and to cultivate, these kind of positive, habits that I found were really working for me. And so I think that, some, relationships of mine that were really life supporting
Hmm.
and that were really, kind of feeding me in a sense and uplifting me. I was much more in the beginning there drawn to those relationships, spending more time with those people. And those relationships, whether it be family or friends or acquaintances, colleagues, that were less life supporting, those
Yeah.
those those relationships, I actively did not cultivate so much at that time. At that time,
Yeah.
and this is part of the growth process. And as the years have gone by, I mean, from those, from that first course and this first kind of, I mean, of course, evolution is starting not only in this lifetime but the lifetimes previous,
Yeah.
and will continue.
Hmm.
But especially in this lifetime, that big transition was 20 years ago when I first took that sky breath meditation art of living part one course. And that preliminary time, yeah, I think that, I needed to take that time kind of more, in that space of people. And then as the years went on and I started to connect with that great strength that we all have, within
Yeah.
ourselves, and I started, to really connect with that, then it became much easier, to be with many types of people.
Yeah.
Um, I started to notice that, yeah, I could even be around people that, maybe were less life supporting,
Hmm.
but I could come, from a space of compassion,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
really transform for myself, and I think for the other, that interaction. And maybe I don't spend all my time with them because,
Hmm.
I think of course, fire catches fire, and
Yeah.
we want to be with other people that can uplift us, but at least I was able to spend more time and see how we can serve, all people, and really, and really, see how we can, not only uplift ourselves on our own journey, but bring other people along on their journey, and see how in their own unique way, like you were saying, we can help them develop and blossom in their talents. and and as the years have gone by, this I find that just being in that space of connecting with the self and being in that love and joy and peace, um, although the emotions, do come, the anger and sadness and
Yeah.
anxiety and what have you. I think before it was like a line through cement almost, how long those emotions
Yeah.
would last. And then it
Hmm.
became maybe a line through dirt, and then it
Yeah.
became, it's becoming more like a line through water now.
Yeah.
And then when I see, you know when I see Guru Dev, and I and I noticed it's almost like a line through air.
Yeah.
So I think, that's the thing about the great masters, from the past, present, and future. They are constantly telling us, um, that this is within us. There's nothing different.
Yes.
All of that, you know, all of that wisdom and peace and love is within you. And I think that's the beautiful thing about, finding, we were talking about enlightenment, finding these masters that live from this space, you know,
Yeah.
24/7. It is within each of us. And I think that that journey definitely for each of us is unique. And I just feel so grateful for the tools and techniques and the wisdom, that I've learned from Guru Dev, and I get a chance to share with people now, and also experience other people's journey and learn more about, how they've come to where they are, and yeah, I really appreciate learning about your journey too, Ken.
Yeah, it's in personal growth, and I call it the place of solitude. A lot of
Mm.
people, Spencer, are afraid of that space right there. To me, it is where I gather my strength. It is where I am becoming acquainted with me. I am gaining knowledge of myself in my solitude. And I try to explain the difference between solitude and loneliness. This has nothing to do with loneliness. In
Mm.
fact, in that space of solitude, I am connected to much more than I will ever be connected to than being alone. I mean, that place, I'm connected to
Mm.
you, all of those people, and
Mm.
all the energies that are there, if one understands the purpose of solitude. And as you begin to gain insight into you in that space, you're learning about managing your energy, you're learning to observe energy, you're learning all of these things, your emotions, all of things are energies, and they're energetic first that we are able to express
Mm.
differently than different other energies that we all house. But as we learn, and we are then from that space, Spencer, we are then able to come into a way by which we are, because what are we learning there? We're learning how to recognize boundaries within ourselves.
Mm.
And as we begin to recognize boundaries within ourselves from the place of solitude, when I meet someone that has a different type of energy that is disturbing, I am well aware of it quicker, and I'm able to make the adjustment where it I boundaries. I'm creating boundaries all day long as I'm moving. I'm able to engage with them. It doesn't come in and drink of me. It doesn't sap me out. Why? Because I was not afraid to be alone and be in a space of
Mm.
solitude. Strength
Mm.
lies there, Spencer. And as you gain your strength, Spencer, you begin to move forward and interact with those. And I know being in that space, you are now moving forward. When did you begin to feel the pull, if you will? Because I made a statement earlier that it is only disciples that change the world, not members. Members are those folks that will come to the meeting, sit down, and go, wow, this is beautiful, and they leave. But a disciple will come and sit down, and things will begin to happen to that disciple. And most of the things that will become that disciple will continually be asking questions. And so when
Mm.
that disciple asks questions, it's probing to get answers to dig deeper. So you cannot be around that man and
Mm.
stay as a disciple and ask questions and just be stationary. As you made your commitment, Spencer, to become a disciple, what caused that um, decision and what began to happen in your life? Because things will begin to happen because
Mm.
you're now you're now joining yourself to his energy and his space. And trust me,
Mm.
things will happen. What made you make that decision to be a disciple, and what were those things that began to happen?
Mm. Well, yeah, I'm definitely happy to answer that question because I think it's an important question. But I really want to highlight, this, kind of space that you created here, but connecting with that, silence, connecting, with that, solitude, because I think
Yeah, I
you
love
know,
being there, man.
yeah, that's it, man. Like I think that there is a fear there, I think, for many of us, and definitely for me originally, of being alone, of
Yeah.
just simply being with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
There is some kind of barrier there. There is a fear, and I know, like, for many of our emotions, like, say for example, we start to feel. So, I remember in the past start to feel some anxiety. What's the first thing I used to do? Well, I start to feel anxiety. Oh, don't want to feel that. Don't want to experience kind of divine information that's coming to me. I look upon it as bad. So what do? I
Yeah.
want to cover it up. I want to push it away. I want to resist it. I'm going to open up the fridge. I'm going to take a look. Oh, I got some brownies in there. Okay, great. Well, let me have one brownie. Well, it was a small
Yeah.
brownie. I let me have a few more. It was just a small one, right? So,
Yep.
and then I've got the whole tray is finished, and I feel
Yeah.
tired. I feel exhausted, and the anxiety is still there. Or I'm scrolling on my phone. Let's bring it
Yeah.
into the new context, and
Yeah.
searching for that one funny clip or sense of
Yeah.
upliftment. And it's so interesting that what one of the tenets that we share in the art of living is what you resist persists.
Yes.
And the more we resist an emotion, the more we push it away, what happens? Well, it stays there. It's like putting it in concrete. So how do we surpass these, what seems to be this storm of emotion, where
Mm-hmm.
even no matter everything you've learned, everything you've practiced, when the storm hits, forget it. It's all out the window, and you are caught in this
Yeah.
storm, and you are helpless, and there is nothing you can do. So
Yeah.
in this storm, what can you do? Well, if you can really have the courage to just be with it
Yeah.
and open your arms and say, okay, storm, you're here, come. I want to give
Yeah.
you a big hug, and
Yep.
I'm going to fully immerse myself in this experience, in this present moment of this storm. There is some transformation that happens there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, another favorite poet of mine is Rumi,
Yeah.
and there's a beautiful poem called "The Guest House."
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you've ever had a chance to read that, and
Yes.
he says something. I'm paraphrasing here, but says something along the lines of, when this storm of emotions comes your way, and these negative thoughts and kind of, quote unquote, negative emotions in one context come into your life. What does he say? He says, treat them as an honored guest,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
which is the opposite of what I wanted to
Yeah.
do in the past. I wanted to shut the
Yeah.
door. I wanted them to leave as quickly as
Yeah.
possible. And he says, I in fact invite them in for tea.
Yeah.
Spend this moment with them. And in so doing, see how they dissolve and they leave on their own. And
Yeah.
that really is my experience, and I really wanted to salute you in really embracing those moments of solitude, because I feel it is so important to be able to embrace these moments. And not only that, but there is a very powerful practice of going inward, and
Mm-hmm.
really that journey needs to be done essentially on your own, really.
Yes.
you
Yes.
know
Absolutely.
when when we go to sleep, we don't go to, of course, maybe you go to sleep with your partner, but that journey of sleep is your own. And same is this journey, kind of to the self, is also the same way. I really love how Gurudev Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, he puts it, the journey of life is from being somebody to nobody is the first step.
Yep.
And then the next step is from being nobody to being everybody.
Yes. Absolutely.
And I really resonate with what you were saying, because in essence, if when we do go inside, there can be this aspect of loneliness when we first visit this space, this inner space. There can be those moments of loneliness, but then the loneliness, when we sit when we dive deep into it, this
Yeah.
loneliness can flip into this joy, into this, feeling this hollow and emptiness within. The throat is hollow and empty. The stomach is hollow and empty. Maybe earlier in the morning, especially if we haven't had the
Yeah.
breakfast yet.
Yeah. Mm.
Experiencing this, kind of hollow and emptiness within us, experiencing this loneliness fully, it can flip. And all of a sudden, this expansiveness comes, this connection with ourself and the environment, and feeling this kind of, you could say, maybe even infinite aspect of ourself dawns. And for
Yes.
me, this is really where the life begins, is kind of coming back to full circle of that, maybe even that freedom, that joy, that peace, that love that we felt as a kid,
Hmm.
through those moments of feeling and being in that solitude, as you were saying. So yeah, just before we got to the next question, it really touched me what you were saying there.
Yeah, it's a holy place, and I always tell people to get there. It's a holy place. It truly is. Um, I learned everything in that space, and all of the sages. When you go back in and you look at the sages and their lives, I studied many different um, modalities in religion, and Muhammad, Moses,
Mm,
Christ, all of these men, they separated themselves. Paul was one of them. He separated himself and he went into the desert, and
mm,
he went into a place of solitude. And when they came out of that place, they changed the world. And that's why I
mm,
tell people the place of solitude is where you gain your strength. Um, the insights, the revelation, all of those things housed there. I My habit was to invite all of those emotions to dinner.
mm.
I literally did this. I would cook a meal. I'm serious, Spence. I would cook a meal, and I'd have this thought that I'm dealing with for weeks, and this emotion that would come, and I said, we need to have a conversation. And so I would have my dinner and set up music, and I would welcome this thought. I said, have a seat, this feeling and stuff. Let's have a conversation. Because, of course, when those things come, there's fearfulness that is wrapped within it. And so you can be in a state of fearfulness with this particular thought or whatever. So I would invite it. And so I would begin the questioning, why do you feel that way? And we would have a conversation back and forth. And
Wow.
at the end of this thing, I would say, thank you so much for spending time with me and for what
Mm,
you have taught me, for I see why you came. And I
mm,
thank you so much and I appreciate it. And I would get up and I would move forward from there. Many of my days and nights I have spent having dinner with myself
wow.
and conversation with those thoughts and emotions that have come my way. And from those conversations, I can say I had some of the greatest um, encounters, if you will. So I always tell
Mm,
people, make sure to have some encounters. Get to know who you are.
mm.
You're so beautiful in so many different ways. You're not aware
I
of your
agree.
beauty, and do not allow someone to outside
Mm,
of you to disrespect you and saying that you are less than. That
mm,
person who is saying that is in
mm,
much pain. That is
mm,
why they're saying you are
mm,
less than, because they don't see the value in themselves. Do not allow them, don't give them that position. Retake and
mm,
reclaim yours. Listen to them, but don't
mm,
allow that energy to reside within you. If it's
mm,
someone of authority, you have to learn how to guard yourself and
mm,
not allow that. And when they leave, and you would say, "Well, that's their opinion of you." Get in front of a mirror and begin to talk to yourself. But let me tell you
mm,
my opinion of you, and you began to speak to yourself. There is no other encourager to self than self. You are the greatest of powers that reside in you. All the answers are there, I would tell people
mm,
when I would teach. Now, what you have to do is sit, breathe, pick one. It is there.
mm,
And all you have to do is request the answer, and I am telling you, it will manifest. Someone will come with it. It might be an hour, 2 hours a day, but expect it to come because you have made a demand or a request of your inner being, and
Mm,
he is eager to bring it to pass so that you can grow together and become who you are. Spencer, here
mm,
you have this opportunity. I know that you are a facilitator, you are gifted in this particular area, you are a sage within it. You're able to bring those of different mind, different belief system, different desires, all of them. You're able to um, escort them and bring them as a team to accomplish a single mission. When you
mm,
began to move in that space, and I tell people, when you move in that, in your calling, your gift, if you will, there is
mm.
nothing like it. It is a
100%.
place by which you get and you gain strength. It is a place by which you
Mm,
gain wisdom. It's a place by which you are humble. It's a place by which you have joy. It is all
mm,
that you need. When you are here, Spencer, and you're able to maneuver and guide those as you're educating them about you and them, when
mm,
you invite us to one of those times, as you're talking to someone, Spencer, and you begin to see that slow transformation, and they're
mm,
getting it, we call it the light bulb is clicking, if you will,
mm,
and you are privy to see one of the most spectacular transformation in the human being. You're getting them to see they're now moving from one that is in bondage to one that is in light. Invite
mm,
us there and
mm.
allow us to spend a minute when you saw and you've seen many. What comes to your mind when that question is asked? And what was that situation like?
Mm. Well, you're right. I think it's such a blessing. I think maybe also you can identify with this that when you start to go on this personal journey, then it invites so many really amazing people within your life. And I mean, just one person is coming to me right now, and we do programs with the military and with veterans. Our program's called Project Welcome Home Troops. And we were doing a research study, and we were observing the benefits of Sudarshan Kriya, sky breath meditation on people with post traumatic stress. And this gentleman, he came into this study, and you know, I could have sworn that his head was on a swivel.
Mm.
He you could see like he was literally shaking
Yeah,
in anxiety, you
yeah,
know, overstimulated and hyper vigilant to the point where he just couldn't turn it off. And
yeah,
although he was sharing that he was just exhausted, I mean, he shared with us that in the past 6 years before, after his deployment, his last deployment, the most he ever slept was 3 hours each night.
wow,
Like, can you imagine? Like, the most you sleep is 3 hours per night. I mean, it's 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 incredible. I mean, I
wow.
don't even know how he was still even functioning, and somehow he brought himself to the course. And um, he had tried so many different things, and really, from that first moment of after those first few moments after the Sudarshan Kriya, um, he was silent and still, which was so surprising. and
Yeah,
and he didn't say so much afterwards. He kind of kept to himself. Um, and then the next day he came back, and he was kind of upset with us. And he shared that, because of you, I slept 10 hours last night and I almost missed my dentist appointment. So he was kind of upset, that he missed his dentist appointment. He almost missed it. And you should have seen it. We had a laugh. I had not
yeah,
seen him smile in the intake interviews. And to see him come back
yeah,
to that more, calm, that more settled space, at least open the window to that, you know, was really remarkable. And I think, it may seem like you may think, oh, that's no big deal, having a better sleep, but for him it meant the
Oh,
world.
yeah, that's everything.
And for him it's been the beginning of a journey. And many actually of our veterans are now actually instructors of our
Yeah,
veteran and military programs. And and this is something that we don't have to wait until we've gone through all of this, all of these, kind of traumas and situations. We can actually learn it. We have programs for kids too.
yeah,
So the kids can learn these programs at an early age. They don't have to go through, maybe they can, you could say, go through differently what we experienced, and have these tools and techniques to come at it from, as we were saying, as an observer, to be able to release some of this, stress and negativity, and be able to live from the center more. And for those of us that maybe didn't have the luxury of having those tools early, then we can learn them now. We can add them to our tool belt, even if we have our own practice currently, and they can really make such a difference. So yeah, I really hope, and I'm kind of send my great regards to everyone, that they can continually learn, as I think we have, and as each of us is, and at some point have the blessing to experience Sudarshan Kriya, Sahaj Samadhi meditation, go on a silent meditation retreat, and at the very least, be able to reserve some time for themselves. I think that in this busy world, we're constantly taking care of our kids, our job, and sometimes one very important person gets left out, and that's
yes,
us. So it's
yeah.
important to spend that
So,
time, and maybe it's just a moment of silence, maybe it's a moment of meditation, maybe it's just sipping your tea and looking out the window. But whatever it is, seeing how you can, whatever works for you, seeing how you can take that time for yourself, I think is so important.
absolutely. One of the things when we are in a plane, they tell us if anything happens, any crisis happens, what you do is make sure that when that um, oxygen falls, you put it on you first. And that's
Mm,
against the instinct of most people, is to put it
that's
on,
it.
they'll put it on everyone else, on them, not understanding the principle that if you don't put it on you, you can't save anyone. So that is a perfect example. You need to fix you. You need to not even fix, you need to pay attention to you in order for you to be able to pay attention to someone. And Spencer just gave us some excellent idea. I'm going to provide everything to get access to him because there's a lot of things that Spencer is doing. I know he's involved in many different programs and so forth, and he's actually the maitre d', as they say, of the world, the 2023 edition of the World Culture Festival that is going to
That's it.
happen in Washington, D.C. And you guys that are listening, you need to get out there. But we want to provide for you links and other ways by which you can get access to his meditation. I need you to find it. I'm telling you, I know the power that is in meditation. I know the power of breathing. In our discipline with Majaya was the Kundalini breath, and Kundalini yoga,
Beautiful.
and fire breathing, and so forth. But that breath, managing the bridge is, as I said to you, is that bridge that escorts you into that supernatural. You have to learn about yourself. Meditation is one of the most
Mm,
powerful things out there, guys. And I'm going
true.
to make sure that you guys have everything to reach him because it is necessary for you in your personal development. And I want to challenge you guys to not be members. Members will
Mm,
come, check the site, and run away. We are looking for disciples. Spencer's a disciple. He sat, he stayed,
100%.
and he is changing the world and doing, moving in different way that where his sage was not able to go, but he will take it a different way. That's what the disciples did.
Mm,
Um, where Jesus, those 12 boys, changed the world. And
Mm,
so we welcome you
100%.
guys to be disciples. Spencer, I want to thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment, man. This has been a good one.
Thank you, Ken. And maybe just as a final word, I would love to just welcome you and your whole audience to come, as you mentioned, to the World Culture Festival. We're just past about 370,000 registrations, so we're going to be in a great group. And yeah, the whole idea is to come together in unity and peace and love. And there may be a little bit of division in the country, but we thought, okay, what better way to get together than with great music and food, 85 food trucks from food from around the world. And
Nice.
you know we're going to have a celebration and bring the world together, and we want you to be there. It's going to be an incredible event. We're going to have a global meditation. 20 million people are going to join online, hundreds of thousands in person, global leaders from around the world. And it won't be the same without you. So September 29th, October 1st, come join us in DC, or join us online through the live stream. We would love to have you.
Definitely, I will be either or. And
Wonderful.
I will look at the calendar for the physical trip. If not, I will be online. So, but
Amazing.
in either case, I'm going to let you know. And everyone that is listening, I invite you to. So bring families, bring friends if you can't make it at the site, get online. Let's be a part of this manifestation. Can you imagine you having all those people focusing on one thing? It will
Mm,
change this planet, guys. So we want to welcome you all. Again, Spencer, thank you so much.
thank you, Ken. Been a great pleasure.